This episode of After Dark is brought to you by Audible. For a free 30-day trial, head on over to audible.com/Gamebreaker. You'll not only walk away with a free 30-day trial, but we'll also give you a free audiobook. Whoosh, Gamebreaker TV. Do 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 wop 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 do 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 brr 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 do 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 do. Hello everybody and welcome to Gamebreaker's After Dark, the call-in show where you guys call in live and we answer your questions right here every Tuesday at 9:30 p.m. PDT.
And everything always works properly.
And
100%.
Always works properly, even the sound effects or the music working. You know, that's quality production right there. Joining me like he does every week and backing me up on the kazoo, Mr. Josh Allen. I didn't have my ocarina app out in time, but I think we now found your musical instrument for legendary live streams.
It's K-Step, bro. K-Step.
K-Step. Oh, gosh. All right. Well, like I said, this is the show where you guys call in every week and ask your questions live here. We never know what's coming at us, so let's just open up the lines and get the show started. Call, you're online with Gamebreaker After Dark. What's that?
Hey, Mike. Hey, Josh.
Hey.
Hey.
How you doing? How you doing?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
I'm alright.
It's
I'm
I'm Adam,
I'm not Italian.
the guy from Ohio. So, my question
Go blue.
is, no, don't go blue. But
Go red?
But we will
Go
see
purple.
you in the no, scarlet and gray.
purpling.
Definitely
We're
scarlet and
purpling.
gray.
You know
Scarlet
what
and
colors
gray.
are.
Maybe,
Anyway.
maybe.
What's
We
your
will see
what's your
in the
question?
finals. My question is, like, what do you think with game companies listening to their fans maybe just a little bit too much? And
No, sorry, we don't want to listen to you anymore. Done. Next question. All right, go ahead. Sorry, sorry to cut you off.
But it's like, at what point do you just say, no, that's just a bad idea, and we really don't want your feedback anymore? And I think it's like a lot more prevalent in, like, I hate to say BioWare, like they listen to their fans a little bit too much, and a lot of EA, it's just, I mean, at what point
Tell you
do
what,
wanna
DRM is everything their fans were asking for.
it seems
Star
to
Wars:
be
The Old Republic fans were like, you know what? I really would like to have to pay to hide my head slot. I feel like that's, and for more action bars, that's something we should pay for. No, but I get what you're saying. Like sometimes a game developer they'll listen to a little bit too much. They'll listen to too many people, and you sort of get that sense of, okay, do you guys actually know how to make a game, or are you just sort of trying to paint by numbers here? At what point does the game developer not actually know what they're doing, and instead they're just, please tell us how to make a successful video game, because we don't know. We got no idea. It's definitely a big concern. I think it's not so much a question of listening to or not listening to the fan base. I think it's more of a question of tempering the feedback you get. Knowing when, okay, here's this feedback that we've gotten, taking that into consideration, but also being able to say, no, actually, this guy, he just doesn't understand something about the game, or he's just incorrect, or something along those lines. Like, if you look at most MMOs, everybody wants their class to get buffed. Everybody says, my class is the worst. All my class ever gets is nerfs. And then everybody else says, no, your class only ever gets buffs, and my class is the most nerfed. So everybody always wants their class to be the best, so everybody always wants their class to get buffs. Except for Warlocks, because they're correct in that Warlocks need more buffs. But no, we're overpowered as hell. It's ridiculous. But no, it really is just a question of that's one of the major skills, I think, of a good web developer, a good game developer, is the ability to look at feedback and say, okay, well, here's this stuff. It's also a huge part of the community team as well, being able to look at feedback and say, what's the important feedback here? What's the actual core of the idea that they're getting at here? What's the actual issue? Because usually when somebody's complaining about something, there's usually a problem there. It's just not always the exact problem that they're complaining about. Like
I don't hit for 8 million white damage. Fix it.
Well, you'll see a lot of like people say, well, my class doesn't do enough damage. My DPS is too low. When a lot of times maybe it's not so much that your DPS is low. Maybe it's that it's more that you just don't know specifically how to play the class. And that's something that a developer can look at and say, okay, why do they not know how to play their class? Is the class too complicated? Is there too much weirdness going on in the rotation? Is the only reason other people are doing more DPS because of some weird little other, like a lot of times people say, oh, I can't believe that they fixed like Scorch Weaving, for example, for Arcane mages. I can't believe that they fixed Scorch Weaving because that was how Arcane did so much damage. But the reason they did that is because it wasn't really optimal. It wasn't really I don't want to say obvious, but it wasn't really something that you would sit down and say, okay, Arcane Mage, Scorch. That wasn't something that you would think is the proper way to do DPS as an Arcane Mage. It was something that was kind of obfuscated, I guess is a word for it. Not really apparent right away. So sometimes that's why DPS is low, and that's something the developers have to look at. And this extends all over the place too. It's a lot of times it's just a question of, do we listen? You can't like you were asking in the original question here. You can't just say, well, let's just do everything the fans have to say, because then your game will suck. But you do have to. I think it's important to listen to them and just understand what it is that they're really saying. Sorry, I ranted a bunch there. Go ahead.
It's definitely a balancing act that has to be played, because there's danger to be had for just listening to your player base, like you were expressing, but at the same time, it's also fairly ignorant just to not take any sort of situation at all and just be like, oh no, our game is the way that it is. I mean, you mentioned making rotations simpler in order to take it so that it's not so complex. And that's something that spoke to me in terms of being a Feral Druid. The Feral Druid rotation used to be biasly one of the hardest in the game that people said was the hardest to master. And they made it simpler as we progressed into Pandaria.
We call that the John Madden rotation.
So exactly. It's just like, just do everything at once and it'll work. But if you do it right, it'll work amazing. Like, but and that's the thing though, because what happens when you've got a group of people saying we want it easier, but now you've also got a group of people that are very happy with it being a high learning curve profession, but once you master it, you're amazing at it. And now which side of the argument do you take? How do you balance out what's the right steps and who are you going to anger the most to adhere on both sides? Because in that situation, not everybody can be right.
Yeah, a huge part of it, I think, is the developer has to. It's like you say, it's a balance. The developer needs to have their own vision of the game. If all the developer is doing is just sitting there and just doing whatever it is that the average, like whatever's popping up on the forums, all they're doing is making whatever changes the forums say that they should do, then that's wrong. There needs to be their own individual vision for what the game should be. And sometimes that's going to mean that somebody complains about something in the game, and then the developer says, okay, I understand your viewpoint, but that's not the direction we want to take the game. And this is honestly, I don't want to sound too fanboyish for a second here, but this is why when people, Blizzard tends to have this sort of, well, they don't listen to their fans sort of atmosphere that sort of crops up around it, where people say, well, Blizzard, you never listen. You never do what people just say that you should do. And then maybe eventually later you'll do it, but we told you to do that ages ago. This is why I kind of have a lot of respect for that approach, just because it's something that you need to know how to make a game yourself is the thing. Like I guess that's the major point that I'm trying to make here, is that you need to, if you're going to make video games, you should probably know how to make video games. So
nah.
well, and it's an interesting balance to try and strike, because you can't pull a square and not pay attention to anybody and then come out with Final Fantasy XIV and then have to redo the whole thing again later and go, oh, maybe we should actually be listening to people this time around.
You should just come out with Final Fantasy 13 Versus. I've been asking for it for about 10 years now. That's what I'm asking for, Square. Stop it. Just stop it. Sorry, continue.
Yes.
All right. I think we've gotten to the crux of this, though. Yeah. I think that's the balance that they got to play. There's two sides, and you can't just give it all in. Let's open all the calls and keep the show rolling, though. Caller, you're on the line with Gamebreaker After Dark. Tell us your name. Tell us where you're from. Tell us your question. And I don't know what else you should tell us, but tell us something extra.
Make it up. Tell us anything.
Hi, Josh Allen. My name's... We lost audio from the caller. My name's Bill from Kentucky, and my name's Dipface. Josh, I was wondering if you had any thoughts on World First Race so far. You didn't finish in the first week, even excluding Raiden and Lee Shin kill. What do you think about it?
I think a lot of things about what just happened. I won't say most of them. Looking at the World of Warcraft World First Race right now, I think it's fine that it didn't end in the first week. I think, like, people like to say, well, if it didn't get killed in the first week, then it's impossible, and the bosses will have to be nerfed. They're way too hard. It's way too difficult. I don't think that at all. I think a lot of it is just going to come down to gear. Like, crazy thought. Maybe you might have to gear up a little bit to kill further along raid bosses. Maybe that'll be it.
I mean, you were making a prediction on Legendary about how you thought it was going to take about 1 week or two. Now, with this being the case, it's not 2 weeks isn't out of the question, but are you at all reconsidering your stance on if it'll take 2 weeks or might it take 3 weeks? Or
so, to clarify, and I apologize if I sound like I'm going back on what I said before, but to clarify, my thought process then was that once Raiden was accessible, it would be 1 or 2 weeks before he dies. Now that I still feel like it's going to be 1 or 2 weeks for Raiden to die after Lei Shen dies. Maybe 2 weeks at this point. Depends on how difficult it is. It depends on how much gearing up has to be done. But from the sounds of things, Lei Shen is supposed to be the complicated, learn lots of mechanics, and it's a very difficult fight. Raiden is supposed to be more of the, well, you got to take a few attempts to learn him, and once you learn him, then you kill him thing. And then just from the sounds of how Blizzard wants to set him up, it doesn't seem like a fight that the World First Guilds are going to have too much trouble getting down once he's actually accessible. Unless it is another fight where they end up having to gear up for it. But I don't have a problem with the idea of gearing up. It does probably mean that eventually they're going to have to apply some more, hopefully targeted nerfs. Like, not just blanket nerfs like we've seen in the past, but hopefully go in and be like, okay, well now Twin Consorts has less hit points or something like that. They probably will have to do that eventually so that the non-World First guilds can actually have a shot of killing these things. But otherwise, as long as it's something that there does seem to be a natural progression. It's not like Firelands where it was easy and then all of a sudden really, really difficult when you got to Ragnaros. It does seem like there's a natural progression in difficulty as time goes on, because like Darumu and Dark Animus were both up for a long time before they died. It does feel like it feels manageable to me. It feels like something that's not so far out of whack that it's completely and totally unkillable. And I kind of like that the World First Race isn't over in 1 week. I'm happy that there's still more race to go. Like, that's how it was that's how it was in Tier 11. That's how it's been in some of the best World First races in the past. I'm excited that we've got a World First race that isn't just immediately everybody gets all the kills.
Let's go out to another Twitter question. We're still trying to deal with technical difficulties over here with Skype, which are hopefully almost figured out now. So next up, gotta make that arrange a little bit better. Alan O'Reilly asked, Gamebreaker TV, how do you feel about PC games having a release months after their console counterparts? Example, Resident Evil 6 or Assassin's Creed 3. Now, I think it's important to remember there's a couple things that are being played into effect here with at least Assassin's Creed, the Black Flag one that you have to consider is one, obviously we're seeing a lot of promos right now for Assassin's Creed because the trailer got leaked. Marketing strategy or not, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but at this point they've blown their load and they have to get this trailer on TV. Even if it's far out. I mean, I remember I look at it, I see it on TV. I'm like, October? You're really trying to sell me a game in October? I'm going to forget this television ad. But they don't have a choice. They have to start advertising for it because the trailer got leaked. Now, this is something that a fellow coworker, if you guys ever watched Dashboard, if you remember Flitz, brought up a really good point with Black Flag, is that they created this whole sea combat system with Assassin's Creed 3 that really kind of serves as a nice kind of station for an additional, maybe a Assassin's Creed plot line that they felt worked great. And they already had the structure around it. Maybe they felt like exploring more of what that could do. You got to think about the fact that it's kind of like saying Majora's Mask was released shortly after Ocarina of Time was. And that's because they used the same engine. They built it all. And there's a little bit of a backstory as to why Majora's Mask was made. But in actuality, it got made in a year because they're using the same tools. Look at Call of Duties. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 was so similar to Modern Warfare 3 because they used everything the same. Some people will maybe have a problem with them trying to sell you a game twice that use the same tools, but that's I think what's going on there. That's why we're seeing Assassin's Creed come out with something so fast, is because it's hot right now. People are still loving Assassin's Creed 3, and they've got the tools to make a additional counterpart. Maybe some people feel it's an expansion. Maybe some people feel it should be a whole other game entirely. But that's kind of what I think. I don't know. What about you, Josh?
Maybe I don't know. Maybe I misread the question, but I thought he was talking about games coming out on PC several months after, like the same game releasing on PC several months after on console. I thought that was what he was asking about. I could have misread the question while you were reading. If you're talking about like sequels coming out very quickly after sequels, I feel like that's a very different topic. And yeah, you would be correct that a lot of times it's just something where they can get a sequel out in a hurry because they're using the same tools. If we're talking, I don't know if you still have the tweet available to take a look at just to double check. Okay, yeah, PC games having a release months after their console counterpart. So if we are talking about PC games releasing after consoles, part of that is a lot of times those games tend to just be console ports. And we've seen a lot, like there's been a lot of hate for console ports in the recent couple of years here because there's been a lot of really bad console ports come out. A lot of times those are bad console ports that were bad because they released at the same time. Because the developer said, okay, we need to get this game out as quickly as possible. Obviously, you want to release a game when you can. You don't want to sit there and just hold on to the Xbox version of the game or the PS3 version of the game for several months while you're waiting for the PC guys to finish it up. You want to push that out there because you want to start making money off of it. That's the whole point, right? So when we see a PC and console simultaneous release, I'm always very, very skeptical of that sort of thing because it tends to mean that one or the other is a crappy port that was just sort of thrown together as quickly as possible just to get it out there. Borderlands, the original Borderlands, was a pretty iffy console port at its original release. They did a lot better with Borderlands 2, fortunately, but there's been a lot of games like that where it's just a console port and it's like, okay, well, there's no sensitivity sliders or something like that. There's no FOV slider. There's no way to change this thing on the PC. You're stuck with whatever graphics options it says you should have because that's what the Xbox is capable of doing, so that's just what they transport, or the PS3 for that matter. So that's just what they set it up for on PC. So I feel like when we do see a PC release several months after, sometimes it's because they have an exclusivity agreement with Microsoft or Sony or whoever it is. But a lot of times it's also just because they want to make sure that the PC port doesn't suck, right? They want to spend some time to make sure that the PC version of the game actually functions properly. It's not just Control X, Control V to make it work on the PC. You can't just copy and paste. There are very important differences between the two platforms. So yeah, I feel like that's part of it a lot of times, and the other times it's because of exclusivity agreements, where they say, okay, well, we'll make sure that Assassin's Creed or whatever is only on Xbox or only on PlayStation for X amount of time, so that you get this window of time, and then Microsoft will turn around and say, okay, well, then we will help fund the development of this game or something like that.
Alrighty, let's move on real quick to another Twitter question. I literally think Skype decided to create an update in the middle of using it because it's been having issues and now we can't get any audio to the callers. That's why I'm trying to delay time with Twitter questions while we get this trouble shot. But next up here, this is all sorts of not framed right. Let's go to it anyway. Nom Nom wants to know, would community creations, i.e. item creator, do anything to help Diablo 3 as a whole?
I think Diablo 3 needs an expansion. I think that's where we're sitting with Diablo 3 right now. they've fixed the vast majority of the issues that Diablo 3 had. And the reason people aren't coming back to it is because they feel like it's something they're done with. They feel like, okay, well, I played Diablo 3 already, and once you go from that point of I'm really, really enjoying this game, and then everybody kind of hit the wall, or not everybody, but a lot of people kind of hit that wall at the top end, and they said, okay, I'm kind of tired of Diablo 3 now. Or they hit the wall where it's like, okay, I'm max level, and now the game just went from super fun, casual-ish, easy to, oh my god, this is the worst thing ever. I feel like a lot of people got burned out on Diablo at that point. So a lot of people are just kind of over Diablo at this point. So what it needs, honestly, I don't think it needs much in the way of changes to the game. I'm sure there's still issues with it that need to be sorted out and everything. But I think the much larger issue it has right now is just one of player perception. It's one of people feeling like, well, that's a game that I already played. I'm already done with it. I don't really have a reason to go back and play Diablo 3 anymore. Right now, if I'm going to play a action RPG, I'll go play some more Path of Exiles, or I'll pick up Torchlight 2 again, because I didn't end up spending too much time with that game. Chances are pretty low that if I feel like time for more action RPG, chances are pretty low I'm going to go play Diablo. And that's just because, as a player, I feel like I've spent a large amount of time with Diablo, I've seen the majority of what it has to show me, and I'm like, alright, well, I'll go play Path of Exile instead or something. I'll go through this other story that I haven't seen yet.
Do you think an item creator is something that could re-energize that whole idea? Like, people can make their, and maybe not for themselves. I feel like that would cause more of a problem, because then if the people were able, even if they had to gather materials to make the item, that would take even more of the compelling nature to play the game endlessly, to get that random drop encounter, to get that perfect weapon. It would take it away if you could just create your own.
Yeah, I don't know that an item creator really ever makes sense for Diablo 3. It seems like something that just sort of sidesteps the whole point of the game, which is farm these bosses over. Like, even when you're having fun with it, still at the core, the point of those games is farm bosses over and over and over again to get stuff. And it seems like if you can make your own stuff, even if it's something that you have to farm to begin with, like you have to farm a special crystal or something that will allow you to create a legendary item of your choosing or whatever. I feel like if you can, anything more than just like the random crafting that the game already had, seems like it's something that just sidesteps a whole lot of the problems. So I don't know about that in particular. I really think that really the big thing Diablo 3 needs right now is something that will build up interest in the game again. And the little bug fix patches or new feature patches or whatever that they're coming out with aren't really doing it. I think they need a full-on expansion that will get everybody to go out, spend some money on the game again so that they have that personal investment, and say, here's some new content, here's some new stuff for you to go do. You can go, you killed Diablo a million times at this point. Go do something new, get people interested in the game again, get people to come back and see all of the changes that have happened since then, and then go, oh, actually this game is a lot of fun again. All right, well, I guess I'll play it some more. I feel like that's the big thing that it really needs right now. Anything else is just going to be kind of secondary, just because it's very much overshadowed by that large issue.
All right, let's see if we haven't gotten these issues fixed. I think we have Rick on the line. Rick, are you out there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can indeed hear you.
Yes!
Victory!
All right, this is going to be a little bit of an interesting show in order to get around the technical difficulties, but we're going to make this happen anyway. So, Rick, what do you got for us this week?
Well, first, I just want to tell people to donate to Gamebreaker, because apparently you guys are running out of money, not having a soundtrack and Skype breaking.
It's just the best show on the internet right here. We do it all in-house with my mouth.
We're very good at what we do.
All right, so you guys, are on the cusp of internet culture, and you guys know a lot about different stuff. Can you explain to me this My Little Pony phenomenon? I don't understand it.
Well, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about, first generation My Little Pony, or are we talking about this new like hub crap that's starting to pop up? And because that's not real My Little Pony. Let me just say, I grew up with two older sisters. I unfortunately know what My Little Ponies are very in depth.
I'm talking about the new thing with the older people making holes in dolls, and I don't know why.
Well, that's weird.
This is going into a whole nother realm of what? Like, what are they doing with dolls?
Let's not ask that question. Thank you very much, Mike Shaftnit. This is a family show.
All right, well, I guess I just didn't understand that My Little Pony has become a very adult-oriented kind of conversation, but
It hasn't. By normal people. What we have here is maladjusted individuals who need something to... I don't know, man. I don't get it. I think it's just people who... And a lot of it is people who just legitimately do enjoy the series, which, whatever, if that's what you're into, then cool. But I think a lot of it also is people who are trying to find a way to cope with the fact that maybe they find something that's made for girls, like specifically talking about the brony population here. Maybe they see something made for girls, and they don't actually have a huge problem with that. And they actually like it, and they're cool with it. And so they have to feel like they have to justify that to themselves in some fashion. I don't think you need to justify that. If you like something, you like something. Who cares?
It just seems like there's just a bunch of them, just maybe because of the accessibility of the internet.
It's also that sense of belonging to... I mean, we could get into a whole psychological discussion here in terms of just how people's brains work. But a lot of it is just that sense of wanting some identity. Yeah, exactly. Well, it's the sense of wanting to belong to some sort of culture, wanting to feel like you fit in somewhere. People want to do that sort of thing, and that's cool. I mean, whatever. If that's what gets you through high school, then go for it, man. I don't care.
All right, let's Rick, I'm sorry, we're gonna have to cut you off on this one. I just don't quite know where else to go with this question. We're gonna go back to Twitter and try and get this system back in place. But Rick, thanks so much for your question.
Wait. I got one more thing to say.
Okay.
You guys should check out the new forums. Eduardo posted an amazing story on there. I play an old Korean guy. It's awesome.
I think I read this, but as soon as I found out that I died in the first 30 seconds, I was like, well, I'm done.
Because you don't
killed me. You killed me, Eduardo. It's just rude. All right. Thanks so much, Rick. Let's throw it back over to Twitter and see what else we got here while we try and get this back set up. Andrew wanted to know if the World of Warcraft movie was made a trilogy, what 3 plot points would you have to make in the story? Josh.
Made a trilogy?
There is so much. Well, I mean, first off, you got to understand, to make a trilogy, you can pick as many small plot points as you want, but they've obviously got a link. There was an undertone of what was going on throughout the entire Lord of the Rings, even though Fellowship of the Ring, Two Towers, and Return of the King all had like their own subplots. There was an overarching theme going from start to finish. But there is so much lore in World of Warcraft, you could easily make a trilogy out of it, right?
Well, and the thing is, Warcraft is it's a universe. It's not just a story. There's a whole lot of things that go on in Warcraft. There's things going in all different directions. So if we make a trilogy, I don't know, they could retell the RTS games if they wanted. But even then, there's so many different plot points in those between the expansions. Like, do you go Warcraft
right. Which
2
would you
Beyond
pick?
the Dark Portal into Warcraft 3 into the Frozen Throne? Like, what do you do?
What stories would you want to see developed in lore? What stories would you want to be told? Would you want to be told about simply Arthas? Would you want 3 movies made about Arthas with different plot points about his life? Because Arthas is just a topic in himself. Or would you rather have something like the second war, and then I don't know what happens after that, and then I don't know what happens after that, but like something where it's like about one singular focus? Or would you rather see like the evolution of Warcraft over the course of 3 movies?
I think it'd be great if they came up with something original, honestly. If they're going to do a trilogy, if they're going to do anything for Warcraft, I think it should be an original story. So like, say maybe in the first one, maybe there's like somebody on the run from somebody else for some reason, and then they have to like, they like send the like secret plans to something off with like a gnome and a goblin or something like that, and they get stranded on like a desert planet or something, and then later they find the secret plans, so they can, and it turns out they're like for some huge like battle station called like a Doom Sun or something. They can go blow that up. But then in the second one, whoever made the Doom Sun gets angry, and so they strike back, as it were. They get their sort of revenge. But then you see, as things work out, when you get around to the third part of the trilogy, they're trying to build another Doom Sun. that you have to, that like the heroes have to try and take out. But it turns out that it's fully armed and operational by the time they get there. So there's like this huge epic battle at the end. Turns out one guy is some other guy's father, and I feel like that would be a really good original story for them to tell.
You should make a lore show. And not you as in your name. You should just make a story. Get on it.
They could call it, they could call it Star Wars Craft.
Star Wars Craft. Star Wars Craft?
Star Warcraft.
Star Warcraft. There we go. All right, that can't be copyright infringed. Let's open up the lines to another caller. Caller on the line with Gamebreaker After Dark. Tell us your name, tell us where you're from, tell us your question, and I apologize because I'm pretty sure I already hung up on you once.
Yeah, you did.
Sorry. I'm so sorry.
Don't worry about it. Technical difficulties. I understand. God, but I'm just glad I can hear you guys. That was scary. Anyways, all right. My name is Dan Costelli. I'm from Bellingham, Washington, and lately, Heart of the Swarm has gotten me to care again about
I like that one. Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah, thanks. Anyways, but I'm having a really hard time picking a race to play in Starcraft 2, and I guess I need Laura's help. I don't know if Shafnit plays, but I've been trading so much and I can't pick one.
Play random. Go for it. If you don't like one in particular, just play random. Why not?
Yeah, but I feel like I have to pick a faction for some reason. I'm so like ingrained in that mindset thanks to like all these MMOs and everything.
Yeah, well, I mean, playing random is kind of its own thing to an extent. So that may be, honestly, I think you might try playing random for a little while just to see how you do. If not, it really just depends on the type of mechanics you want to get into. If you want something extremely super macro focused, honestly, Terran, I would say, is probably the more, nowadays at least, the more macro focused of the races. Zerg has been typically considered that, but I think the way things play, Terran seems to be a little bit more macro focused nowadays. And I don't know, if it's just find a strategy that you like. Find something that you like doing. Say, oh man, I really like four-gating, for example. That's a big part of why I ended up playing Protoss for so long, is because I was like, well, I could just four-gate every game and win all the time. Go me. So I was four-gated for a long time, and that's a big part of why I ended up playing Protoss so much. I also found that I was pretty good at micromanaging force fields in certain cases. So I was like, all right, well, here's something that I've found that I'm doing okay with. I will then pick the race that I'm okay. And the big thing, I guess, that ties into that is that I played random before that. Before I settled on Protoss, I was playing random for a long time. I just sort of did that until I found a race that had a strategy that I could wrap my head around. I said, okay, I kind of understand how the four-gate works, and I eventually, obviously, branched off from there into like Forge expands and one-gate expands and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah. But
how do you narrow
and stuff?
How do you narrow down and choose? I mean, obviously, there's different types for different people and different things to master based on the different races that you choose to play. But like, if you've sat there and you've experienced all of them, I feel like that's kind of what Daniel you're kind of asking is how do you just make the choice to sit down and master one, right? That's kind of what you're getting at.
Yeah.
Well, that's like, why I say. That's why I say just play all of them for a little while. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've been playing all of them for a little bit of while. Like I haven't gotten to multiplayer quite yet. I just been training and like trying to get the hang of like, okay, always make sure to have your queen spawn larva, extend the creep, like for the Zerg, and just keeping manage of things. Just because I've never really attempted multiplayer until we got unranked in Heart of the Swarm, because I just been so terrified of like going up against anybody and get completely owned, which would kind of I guess not make me not want to play the game. And so that's kind of and I feel like that's something that comes over. You hear a lot of people talking about that with League of Legends and you see that in Call of Duty. I mean, any competitive game that you're going to be playing, especially if it's established, you've got to kind of be okay with digging in and being kind of kicked into the dirt 1,000 times while you learn what it is that you did wrong.
Yeah, the biggest thing you can do originally is just don't be afraid to lose. And this is why I say sort of play random for a little while. Play random in some unranked for a little while. Find a strategy that you can stick with. and watch your replays. And when you lose, and you lose catastrophically, look and see what that guy did. Try that in your next game. You just sort of chain things around like that. So you say, okay, well, I was playing Zerg in this game. Maybe even just the first game you start off as random. You say, I was playing Zerg in this game, and this guy clobbered me with a giant, like, Sentry Stalker death ball. Okay, so next game, I'm going to look at what he did in the replay, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to go Protoss, I'm going to make Stalkers and Sentries, and we'll try that. If you win, try it again in the next match. Keep going with that until you lose, and then look at what the other guy did. And just sort of rotate around like that between different strategies. Every time you lose, think of that as, okay, here's a new strategy for me to try. Don't think of it as, oh, I wasn't good enough when I lost. Think of it as, what did that guy do so that now I can try that and I'll see what he ended up doing. And it just becomes a new opportunity for you at that point. But yeah, don't be afraid to lose. That's how StarCraft works. It's just, you're going to lose matches. As long as you learn something from that match, it's a victory overall.
Okay. So in your opinion, for just real quick, we'll finish this out. Josh, in your opinion, for someone who's played them all and kind of trying to pick, what advice would you give to start with for Daniel?
For a race?
Daniel.
Yeah.
A starting race? I would say start with Protoss, honestly. They're the most straightforward in the early game, I think. Terran tends to be a little bit weird because as you get better with mules, managing that a little bit better, your economy makes these weird swings in different directions. Protoss's economy is pretty much always straightforward. Like, you chrono boost, but that's about it. Queens can be a little bit weird for Zerg as well. I feel like Protoss has the most straightforward early timings in terms of how you get everything out. They have very, very straightforward early builds as well. Part of that is because they kind of have, outside of the first, like, 5 minutes or so, there's only a few ways you can actually go, whereas the other races, I feel like, at the very least, Terran has a lot of different options. And Zerg, like I said, is already kind of just backwards from other races in certain respects, especially since you have to choose between making units and making drones. That's another big one that makes Zerg a little bit difficult at the start. So I would say start with Protoss. It's a simple race at the very beginning of the game, and then branch out from there and say, okay, well, I feel like I'm starting to get a handle of basic mechanics, basic macro, and so on. Let me try this other thing. Or do like I was saying before and say, oh, well, I tried Protoss at the start, and let's see what beats me. Oh, I died to Ling Muta. I'm going to try Ling Muta next game. Something like that.
The longest, most straightforward answer. Which of these 3-word races should I do? Insert.
Be realistic.
Insert
you
PST
knew that was
sentence.
Not going to be you knew that was not going to be a simple answer.
Protoss,
you knew.
Zerg, or Terran. That's all you had to say.
Have you met me, sir? I don't make simple answers.
All right, Daniel, thank you so much for your question. We hope that helps. If you can, get a machete and weed through all the vines and bramble. Sorry, it's Starcraft. Let's open up the lines again and keep the show rolling.
Did you say you hate Starcraft?
No, I just said Starcraft in general. It's just like as soon as you start talking about all the different theories, it's a whole nother world to me. All right, caller, you're on the line with Gamebreaker After Dark. Tell us your name. Tell us where you're from. Tell us your question.
Hey, it's Mike from Winnipeg here.
Give us some static. Hey, Mike.
Hey, so EA is in the news right now for lots of reasons, including SimCity being utter crap on its release, and their CEO is now stepping down. So I was wondering what you guys are thinking about that, and whether or not the new CEO is going to come in to try and turn the company around into being something much more positive in perspective from the gamer, or whether they're just going to find somebody else to come in and fill his shoes.
Well, first off, are we kind of just going to come out and say that him stepping down is a way of dampening the blow due to SimCity, or do we think that this is collectively a series of bad mistakes that is either too much for him to handle, is too much stress for him? I'm unaware of the reasons why he stepped down, but clearly it's because of some of the complications. But sometimes they have their own reasons, or are we immediately just kind of assuming that this is because of SimCity?
Well, I think from the very little bit that I've seen so far, I don't think they're not saying it's directly because of SimCity, but SimCity's release was absolutely dismal in terms of like how well it could have gone, and so I'm sure that the stepping down is like maybe the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of the overall performance of EA. And if you look at the average gamer when they think of EA, like I think that the overall impression is that EA is just absolutely atrocious in terms of like their general level of quality for their some of their releases that they've done. And when you look at a company, like the CEO is basically the person in charge of like the overall company. So if SimCity is the last one in the long line of like games that could have been better, and then when you look at how SimCity came out, I think that the CEO stepping down is a natural consequence of that. And
do you think that the CEO honestly has like, and again, like I get it, it's kind of politics of the situation, and obviously he's CEO, so he does have, to a certain degree, ultimate control. But we see a lot of developers like this kind of step down. Do we honestly think that him stepping down and maybe having a different CEO in his position would have changed the outcome of what happened to SimCity? Did he really play into that?
I think him stepping down, like part of what they were talking about with that whole thing when he stepped down is that a lot of it is because EA has been losing money like crazy. They have not been, like, people keep saying, oh, people are going to keep buying EA's product. They're not really. Like, they're not buying them as much as EA would like them to the point that they're spending more on development than they're making back right now. EA is losing money, and they have been for a while now. There's been a long string of either like games that either released well but then fell off after that, or came out of the gate looking good and then fell back later, or just terrible releases like we have with SimCity, which SimCity is actually a good game. It's just a question of can you actually get in and play it. And since there was such a ruckus about it at release, it's kind of lost that initial release like hype about it now. People go, well, SimCity, isn't that that game that sucked? They don't really look into why. People will generally assume that, well, SimCity, I heard a lot of bad things about that, so I'm not going to buy it. I think there's definitely a little bit of scapegoat here, and I don't know, maybe I don't want to call the guy's character into question too much because I don't know much about him at all, but it's also possible that he found himself on a sinking ship and wanted to get off. But at the same time, it's something that, like you were saying, Mike, would having a different CEO in there really change much? And I kind of don't feel like it would. I feel like the CEO isn't necessarily the person who's making all of the decisions that have made these games so poor. Obviously, there's a lot of driving force behind that in terms of we need to make as much money as possible, but I don't know how much changing that CEO is really going to change things. I'd like to think that it does, because as much as the EA hate bandwagon tends to go around, and as much as I myself will admit to have I take part in that bandwagon from time to time. I don't buy EA games. It's something that I just have stopped doing at this point because I didn't want to support their business models anymore. But as much as EA hate tends to flow around, we don't want them to stop making games. We want them to start making good games. We want them to start doing things that are good for us as a consumer, because it's never good to the gaming community when somebody stops making games. It's never a good thing for someone to just completely stop releasing anything ever. We don't want that to happen. We want them to start coming out with good games. So I want this to mean that EA's some of their more abusive practices will turn around a little bit. Maybe they'll start focusing a little bit more on producing quality over just trying to sell as much as possible. Maybe they'll work to start to retake some of that image that they've lost so heavily over the past couple of years. I would love to see that start happening. Maybe a new CEO is the beginning of that, but it's way too early to tell at this point.
All right, guys, let's move on real quick. We've only got about 10 minutes left. We want to make sure we get as many callers in as we can, but because I've completely forgot because of technical issues, let's just make this next question related to audible.com. Guys, for a free 30-day trial, head on over to audible.com/Gamebreaker. You guys can get a free 30-day trial and audiobook. And for those of you who maybe are like, well, hey, I don't know what book to get, there's actually some really good deals going on right now. I think you can get a lot of the Dungeons and Dragons books. There's actually a couple more, but it's honestly, guys, it's a wonderful deal. So if you haven't tried it yet, you've got to go do it. You've got nothing to lose, and we're even giving you a free book. So audible.com/Gamebreaker. This next question is brought to you by Audible. Caller, you're on the line with Gamebreaker After Dark. Tell us your name, tell us where you're from, and tell us your question that we didn't get to last week because it was too outlandish.
Hello, this is Eduardo from Mexico, and this is my first time calling.
Is it?
Yeah.
Wonderful. I hear you have such a really good question, first-time question for us.
Do you have fire tornadoes in Mexico?
No, sorry.
Well, good to know.
Yeah. And please don't ever call John Richitello a developer, because he's not an engineer and he's not a game designer. He's a badly advised business manager. Well, he was.
Not anymore. Get out.
All right, there you go. Eduardo has spoken.
Banhammer. All right, Eduardo.
This is your new opinion, Internet. Adopt it. You don't want to face the consequences.
Last week, I don't know if this is your question this week, but last week we cut you off. You said you had such an outlandish, crazy question for us this week. So let's see what it is, or if you still have it. What you got for us this week?
Well, my question was stolen. It was also about John Richitello. But well, just real quick, which is the next evil CEO that you would like to see fall? Because we had the Pope 2 weeks ago, and
he's a CEO.
Yes, he was the CEO.
Gary Gannon. I will return to all the shows. What? Sorry. What? Anyway. Was that your question? Was what CEO should we see fall? Josh, you got any other CEOs you'd like to see bite the dust?
Not really.
I mean, honestly, like, tastes of video game companies aside, I don't want to sit there and think that any. I want to be like, you know, you should just not have a job. This economy sucks too much to hope that somebody becomes unemployed. But gosh, I don't know. Like, I don't think of anything that I have an extreme distaste for.
Activision, probably.
I mean, a lot of people don't like Bobby Kotick. And I can understand, because he says a lot of things in like reviews and stuff, or interviews and stuff. He says a lot of things that a gamer will look at and say, "That's a terrible. Why would you even say that?" Like, what was his wording a while ago? Penny Arcade ended up doing a comic about it, where he's like, "We want to make sure to exploit these brands as much as possible over the next few years." And everyone's like, "Exploit? You're going to exploit the Warcraft brand? This is why Warcraft is going down the tubes." But the thing is, like, when Bobby Kotick talks, he doesn't talk to gamers. He talks to publishers, or he talks to investors. He talks to the people behind the scenes. And all he wants to do is make money. And although a lot of times that sort of attitude is tough for a gamer to cope with, I feel like, and I don't want to sound like I'm defending the guy too much here, because it's not my place to really defend him. But at the same time, I feel like when I see Bobby Kotick talk about something, I just kind of go, well, that's not intended for me. I'm not even going to pay attention to it. It's like this is something that he's talking to somebody else right now. When he comes out and says, we want to come out with Call of Duty Elite or something like that because we want to make as much friggin' money off of Call of Duty as we can. We want to make people spend as much money as possible. That's because he's running a
CEO.
Yeah, that's his job. His job is to run a business. His job is to get you to pay as much money as possible. So as long as Activision continues to operate in a way that is not abusive to its developers. Very famously, Mike Morhaime and a whole lot of top developers at Blizzard, or top people at Blizzard, have always come out and defended him, saying, no, he doesn't tell us what to do at all. He doesn't care what we do. As long as we keep making money, he doesn't care. And that's the sort of leadership quality that I can really respect and understand and agree with, where he just says, listen, you guys are making money, you do whatever you feel like. That's the kind of thing that I can respect, that sort of attitude. So again, I feel like what Bobby Kotick does, as long as it doesn't translate into bad news for gamers, then it's whatever.
Do you remember Operation Icebreaker? That was horrible.
I do not.
I don't either.
I remember the code name, but I don't remember what it was in reference to.
Well, he tried to hack the computers of some game designers to find anything against them, to have a reason to fire them. Okay, that was evil.
That sounds a little bit conspiracy theory to me, but I don't exactly.
But I mean, and that's there's just I mean that's there are a ton of small companies, and I can think of one right off the top of my head that I can't talk about, but at the very least, there are bad CEOs out there. There's no question. And now that I think about the whole root of this question is what CEO would I like to see fall? If only I didn't sign a contract that meant I couldn't say anything about this company, I would. But it's just small. There companies out there are run by people, and it's some are good, some are bad. I don't really know if there's any reason necessarily though to wish the worst on them. Let their company fall, and then let them take the public humiliation for it.
The best or worst that I can ever wish on somebody as a CEO is that if their business practices are bad, then their business practices should fail. If that's what happens with EA, if that's what's happening right now with EA, then good. That's how capitalism works, right? That's how the whole you spend money for the people that have services that you want thing works. If somebody's product is just not good, then it won't sell. Someone should always be able to sort of reap the positives or negatives of whatever is coming out. I don't harbor that much hatred towards anyone to ever say, like, even people make bad choices too. Even if Bobby Kotick personally sat down and said, okay, we need to hack as many people as possible in order to get as much information. If that's something bad that he did, then all right, well that's dumb. That's lame. I don't know that that's what happened, but if that's something that he did, then that's dumb, and I would say don't do that. But I also wouldn't say so he should lose his job because he's a bad person. Like I don't know. Maybe that's just how I am maybe I'm too nice, but I don't
You're
ever
too
wish
nice as a person.
I don't wish people to lose their jobs. I wish them to do their jobs better. I like people to improve and do better, not be like, well, we need to get somebody else in there entirely. No, just do your job right next time.
I just want to go on record and also say that just because I see people in chat and I don't want it to be misconstrued at all. The company that I was talking about previously is not ZAM. It's something that happened kind of before, and that's as far as I can legally go into. But ZAM's a wonderful company, and it was a great time working for them. All right.
They actually are unnaturally nice people at ZAM. It's kind of
unnaturally. It's a great work environment to be in. So let's make this one last caller. Get this show wrapped up. Caller, you're on the line with Gamebreaker After Dark. Tell us your name. Tell us where you're from. Tell us your question. Brian, I don't care. Bye. Sorry. Okay. Sorry.
Wow.
Go ahead.
Wow. Hi, Mike. Hi, Laura's hair.
Not Laura, just Laura's hair.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I didn't respond.
His hair is very important. Okay.
It's getting cut tomorrow.
I'm Brian, 7-bit Brian. I'm from Virginia.
Hello.
I'll go ahead with my question, I guess.
Yes. What do you got?
No, we don't answer questions on this show. What's wrong?
Why are you calling in? What is this?
Okay.
You want to just talk? You want to talk about how you hate something so that we can get the idea of the fact that I hate cheesecake out? Can we just like section hate towards
not even me.
Brian?
I wasn't even gonna bring it up this time.
Chat's talking about it. I can't get away from it.
All
right, what's up?
Okay, seriously. All right. A lot of developers and gamers really are pushing like sandbox these days, pushing quote user-generated content unquote. Do you believe, as many of them are touting, that it really is the future of like gaming and MMOs? And if so, why aren't we seeing a lot more of it?
Because it's not the future, in my personal opinion. Go ahead, Josh.
It's just another. I don't want to say fad, but it's something new that game developers are sort of harping on right now. Games like DayZ came out, or it was even a game with like a mod, like DayZ came out with something like, oh, the players create the content for themselves, and it's something that, yes, when done right, it's extremely fun. It's a lot of fun for players to play in. I don't think every game needs to be a sandbox game. I don't think every game needs to have sandbox elements. I don't think every game needs to have sand in it. Like, it's not even something that you need, right? Like, I don't think that...
Who wants... I mean, we could just go to the beach and grab sand and put it in my computer and it'd be just fine,
exactly.
Right?
No,
Sandbox.
but I don't think that... In the sort of the same thing, I can remember the same thing, like when Grand Theft Auto 3 came out, ages ago, like when Mike Shaftner was just a baby, when Grand Theft Auto 3 came out. That was something that all of a sudden everybody said, open world games. Open world is the future of gaming. Every game needs to be open world now. And a whole bunch of open world games came out after that, and they were all kind of Me Too. And then it was like, all right, well, open world is good when done right. It's a valid direction to take your game. It's a valid genre in that sense. But it's not something that every single game needs. Turns out people still like grindy single player, like people play Final Fantasy still, right? So I don't know.
That's why I would say that. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think, God damn it. I was going to say, I think that it's just another way to make a game, and it's something that's kind of cool right now. People are kind of into. But it's like roguelike genre came back not too long ago, and people are like, oh my god, every game has got to be roguelike now, and then that died out, and there's still new roguelikes coming out, but then there's all sorts of other stuff too. So I don't know, it's just another thing, really.
And that's just it. Like, user-generated content is something that adds another layer, but at its core, we play games to experience the content and the creation that the developers are designing for us. I personally, I mean, I'm not against putting together a level, but that's not why I'm going out and playing and buying games. I'm not getting lost in user-generated content. It keeps the game alive. But when I'm sitting down to play the game, I want to play the vision, or specifically because I'm very driven by story-driven games, I want to experience the story that the developer wanted to tell, not the level that Josh Allen felt like making. And with that, wow. I know, Josh. Sure. I just don't like your content. It's too hard. I don't want to play your trials levels.
My content is exclusively YouTube videos. If those are too difficult for you, then you may have some trouble. Oh, am I getting played out right now? Hey, I'm Josh Allen. You can follow my stuff on @Devilore and stuff and things. Tankspot.com. Video guides. Gonna be casting Heart of the Swarm matches again soon. Real soon. I have an amazing replay picked out that I can't wait to get to. I just have to be able to get to it. But yeah, check that out.
And follow me, Mike Schaffnet. You can follow me right here on the Twitter. Hey, Mike Schaffnet. All right, that's just getting annoying. I'll stop. Seriously, that probably is very annoying for you guys at home. Be sure to follow Josh and myself right here. But just me @Mike Schaffnet. Be sure to follow @Gamebreaker TV.
Follow me there too. Follow Josh Allen.
Follow
Josh
Allen right here
Twitter.
@Mike Schaffnet. I'm not trying to gain more subscribers or followers at all. This is where you can follow Josh Allen right here. Be sure to follow @Gamebreaker TV and check out our site. Also, guys, we have a brand new forum that you should go over and check out. I know we had some technical difficulties today, so what we're going to do, we're going to take those extra callers that didn't make it onto the show. We're going to make a specific forum post for your guys' questions and leave it up to you guys in the community to talk about it and discuss more about these questions that you guys have. But by all means, feel free to come back and ask us next week. We always need callers and questions, so feel free to check us out Tuesdays at 9:30 PST. Thank you guys so much. See you next week.